Hello and welcome to the Paradigm Shift, Conquering Fear. I'm Mia Saenz, your host, and with me this segment is Charlie Pacello. Welcome, Charlie.
Thank you, Mia. I'm very excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you here. And I've interviewed you before.
Yes, you have. It was great. I loved it.
Woohoo!
It was one of the best interviews I've ever had.
Yes, it was amazing.
It was.
Charlie is he'll tell you more, but he's a PTSD counselor, spiritual counselor who helps people through that fear. And I have had PTSD, so we had a brilliant talk before, and we're going to have another one today. So why don't you share your story on how you got to helping others cross from the pain into freedom?
Well, it started when I was a young boy. My father was a Vietnam veteran. I fought 3 tours in Vietnam and was there during the biggest battles at the Tet Offensive at Khe Sanh, Da Nang, Hue. And my grandfather before him was also a World War II veteran. So it was something that was already in the family, was this experience of war trauma. And so my first awakening into this world was influenced by trauma. I was witnessing the violence that was happening between my parents. I was hearing the screams and the hollers and the terror that was occurring between my parents and the way it made me feel. And so it was something that was starting to be programmed into my mind at a very young age. I remember seeing my mother being thrown into the snow and violence being done and having to console her at a very young age when I was like 2.5 and going up to her as she was crying and asking her not to cry. Mama, please don't cry. And it's what ends up happening is to young children like that, you get what's called secondary PTSD. You start feeling an emotional void for people who, because one of the parents can't do their parts emotionally for that relationship, you start adopting people-pleasing behaviors as one example to help make sure that the person who has PTSD doesn't explode and doesn't break into rage. And you start adopting some of their same behavioral patterns. My mind was, that's the most formative stage of your life, is at that age. So it was being a program to experience PTSD all my life. I didn't have my rational mind developed at that time to be able to process those things and to separate what was good and what was bad. It was just that was what my experience was. So as I grew into an adult, I began to seek those things out. PTSD, I joined the military, and I experienced PTSD as an officer. I was in charge of people and their welfare, and it was my choices, actions, and decisions that caused a lot of people harm and changed and altered the course of their lives, and I took full responsibility for it. I took full blame for it. And it led me down to a path of drug addiction. It led me down a path of suicidal contemplation. It led me down a path of severe chronic depression and feeling like my life was gone. It was hopeless. There's no point to living anymore. And then I got involved in a relationship. See, PTSD can happen not just from military. It can happen from accidents. It can happen from disasters. It can happen from emotionally abusive relationships. It can happen from physically abusive relationships. It can happen from rape, incest. It can child abuse. There's so many different ways that PTSD can happen to somebody.
Yes.
And so I was able to experience the whole gamut of it from a child all the way until when I had the crisis of my life. Excuse me. And with that relationship that I had, I ended up creating the same kind of trauma bond that I had witnessed when I was growing up and watching my parents. That because they were my primary caregivers, that's what I witnessed and how I understood relationships to be. So I was playing both roles in the relationship. My father at the beginning, not trusting, not being able to open up, and probably doing some things he shouldn't have been doing, and then switching over and being the one who was taking all the abuse in the relationship, emotional abuse. So what ended up happening at the end was that on October 15th of 2011, I was on my way to work, and I asked my fiancée at the time when she was coming home. We were both actors. She says, well, I've got a callback audition. And I said, well, that's great, honey. I can't wait to see you and hold you and love you. And I told her how much I loved her. She said she loved me back. And I could hear her walking, and she didn't say anything. I didn't understand where she was at. And so then we got off the phone, and I went back to work, and at midnight I came home to our apartment. I opened the door, and all her stuff was gone. And it was at that moment that all this pain that I had not dealt with, all this pain from being a child and witnessing and growing up, from my own experiences in the military, from the terror that I'd felt when I was in the service, into that moment all came crashing down. It was like an avalanche that just overwhelmed me. And it felt like when I opened that door that I got torpedoed to the bottom of the ocean, and where she lived inside of me got ripped out of me, and all this pain and agony and rage spewed forth. I collapsed to the ground. I couldn't breathe. I was in this immense feeling of terror, like I was being carried along on some kind of force that I had no control over, and that this was happening to me, and I couldn't understand it. I tried to make sense of it, and all it was increasing my sense of helplessness and terror. And I called and tried to get in touch with her, and I went straight to voicemail, and I left terrible messages, grieving messages, hateful ones, angry ones, and I was dying. It was a major transformation in my life. For the next few days, I was in shock. After that, I couldn't focus when I was at work. People would wave their hand in front of my face to try to get my attention. I was just a zombie. I couldn't sleep at night, and when I did sleep, I had terrible nightmares. I would stare at the walls for hours and hours on end in my apartment, and then I would just break down into these uncontrollable sobs. I would break down on the floor, in the bathroom, and it was the most excruciating pain I'd ever been to. It was like my soul had fled. There was a part inside of me, in this center area within me, where my soul should have been. It wasn't there. It was burning. It was a hole in where it should have been in my heart. I don't know how else to describe it. And it burned and it hurt, and all I could think about was I just wanted it to go away. And I had this extraordinary feeling of vulnerability. I wanted and needed to feel loved. I wanted to feel close to somebody, but at the same time, I was too afraid to do it. And on top of that, I had this extraordinary rage. I wanted to hurt. I wanted to inflict pain, but that's only because I was hurt, and that's what a lot of people do who are hurt. They want to inflict pain back. But there was something inside of me that just said, no, just face what it's in you that needs to be faced. And it was my tomb. This was my tomb for a long time.
When you were saying about how your heart was burning, it's not surprising that people take their life when they don't know what else to do. It just occurred to me for the first time that is why people take their life in situations like that, because the pain is so strong they don't know how to get from one side to another and out. And so that's wonderful work that you're doing with people. It truly is. Well,
thank you. It's PTSD. I spent a weekend up in Joshua Tree earlier in the year. It was with Dr. Edward Tick, who wrote the book The War in the Soul. And I love the way he says what post-traumatic stress disorder is. He calls it post-traumatic soul distress, which to me makes absolute perfect sense. Your soul is in distress. You cannot treat problems of the soul by treating just the body with medications and those things. Your soul has... PTSD is honorable and inevitable in environments of intense conflict. Wherever you're experiencing that intense conflict, you should be wounded in those experiences. It's a sign of your humanity. It's a sign that you have feelings in your heart and your soul. And when you are injured, you should take those times to heal your wounds. And it's bigger than just the body, because yes, your body's going to react. But it's your heart, it's your mind, it's your soul as well.
Yeah, that's very deep. I had PTSD from childhood when you were talking about that, and it's crazy how we do become the ones who want to give them love, show them we care, nurture them, hold them, bring them back. I used to do that with my parents. I'd stop my mother from crying at night because my parents fought every night. And then I would go calm my father down and have him go make up with my mom, and then pray that it would take effect and not disrupt the night again, which oftentimes it did. And for me, my PTSD came out 12 years ago after 9/11, which a lot of people it did. It just the devastation on our soil here in the United States, something that hasn't happened since Spanish-American War or something. It's like whoa, So it's really a heavy-duty thing. So let's get into how you work with some of your clients, and besides just because you have other people that come to you besides veterans, like somebody like say me, just say me. I always put myself on the spot. I'm not revealing too much today. No, I'm kidding. So somebody who comes to you with and this is why I do the work I do of self-love, is because I've worked through this too. But say somebody comes to you, we'll just pick a typical client that I have and probably you have. Someone who has either been raped or childhood abuse, and they don't find themselves pleasing, they're unhappy, they're miserable, they're depressed all the time, they don't know what to do. They've contemplated suicide, they have tried to move forward, they end up having a family. I'm just thinking of so many of, and I don't want to call it stereotypes, but truly that kind of is the box that they go in. They're trying so hard that they do create a family, then their partner leaves, and they've got these little children, at home. So how would you, because each healer, we do things differently, how would you address that with your client when they came to you?
Well, first, we would address the remembering who you are. It gets to the point of remembering who you are. You're not your traumas. You're not all these things that happen to you. What I do with people is the program is based upon A Course in Miracles. It's a spiritual foundation and Gandhi's principles of nonviolence. We understand and reconnect to who you always have been and remember who you do. And how do we do that? We connect to your dreams. We connect to your hopes and your aspirations. We understand the nature of guilt and shame and vulnerability and how that is and what that does. We understand what motivates you. We connect to what motivates you. And getting to that deeply inside of you and remembering that. We learn to appreciate who you are. We learn that joy only comes from within you. And by creating a bliss list, that's one of the things, the first things that I do with somebody is that you create your own bliss list, which I love. It's about, writing 100 things that makes you happy. That's not dependent upon anybody else. That's not dependent upon somebody else. That brings you joy, and that lifts you up. And anytime you get a period of being sad or depressed or emotionally upset about something, you go to that list and you put a ring around your finger or a string around your wrist, and you turn that around like 10 times, saying, "This too shall pass. This too shall pass. This too shall pass." And then you go to that image, that thought, that memory that brings you joy. And as you continue to retrain your thoughts, learning to retraining your thoughts, you begin to understand that you're the one who creates your own reality. Nothing outside of you is dependent upon that. And once we understand how to reframe and recalibrate our thoughts and cultivate great emotions, understanding how the heart, the emotions, cultivating gratitude and joy and peace and self-care and care for others and all those things actually enables us to open up our higher cortical levels in our brain. I think it's cortical receptors or something like that, which enables us to be able to solve our problems easier, which enables us to radiate energy out into the world that's going to reflect back to us the love and the joy, the peace that we all want. And then you're writing your ideal days. You're looking at what brings you the most exquisite joy in your life by connecting to your dreams, connecting and remembering who you are. You're a gift from God. You're a gift of light. You're a gift of love. and remembering that. Then once we connect to that, we go back to look at the traumas, what they gave you. There's something that they gave you. There's a gift that they gave you. Something that you can learn, that you can take, that you can extract, that can help you to achieve and go after the things that you want in life. What are you grateful for? There's something that only those traumas and those experiences could teach you. And they have something to give you. Shame is another way that I work with people, is understanding how shame can be a huge friend, making a friend of shame. And then looking at our shadows, incorporating some of the work with Debbie Ford, and looking at the shadows and understanding how we've disowned parts of ourselves outside of us, and until we incorporate all of us, we're going to be affected by those things that we have disowned. And then understanding about the higher consciousness principles, about living in the present moment, and about being in the now, and Wayne Dyer's work about staying focused on what your intentions are, and connecting to that. And David Hawkins is another teacher who I brought into my program, and he's about understanding the different levels of consciousness and the attractive fields that we attach ourselves to. And if we can bring ourselves into a higher vibration, we can bring out more of the things that we want in our lives. And it's also about moving the energy, because you have to move the energy out of the body as well, again, so that you're not locked, that energy is not trapped inside of you. And so it's doing movement, it's doing kinds of Tai Chi work, it's moving so that, and doing sweat lodges or any kind of purification, spiritual purification things. Once you get to that point, there is a process for people to go through that enables you to reach that moment of catharsis, which is where you want to get to, so that you can purge all those feelings and then get to a place of total forgiveness for yourself and for others, acceptance of what is, and then being at the control and the head of your life and going after your dreams and your aspirations.
Wonderful. What are some tools for the shame that we can work on?
Well, the tools for the shame, it's, for instance, it's what did it give you? You look at for the shame, you can push up against shame. If you push up against shame, it's going to push back. It's going to keep pushing back. I didn't want to do this. You didn't want to do this, and it keeps pushing back and forth. But if you turn your hands upside on this side, and you say, "What did you give me? What can I gain from it? How did I participate in this? How did I create this? What part am I responsible for? And what am I grateful for? What in that experience that you gave me? What did I acquire? What awareness was awoken within me that only you could teach me?" And to me, those kinds of tools are essential to understand. Otherwise, shame chases after us, and it holds us hostage,
right,
to the past until we make friends with it.
Right. Would you like to take us through an experiential?
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
I'd love to.
Okay.
Now, when you're looking at an event that occurred in your life that you would want to transform, that you want to get to extract the good from it, the way I would do it is I would have you write it out. You're going to write your story out, and you're going to write it from a third-person perspective, like this character that you're writing in this movie script. So I would lead you on through this event, and we would write your story to the point where you could be able to look through it and see and be able to get it out. By being able to own your own story and getting it out onto a piece of paper, you're able to start taking back the parts of you that are yours. And then once we would go through that story, we would see that the meaning that we give to it is what gives it the emotional charge. It's just a story otherwise. By taking away the emotional charge and just reducing the story into what it is, we get to see how that the story continues as long as we allow the story to continue. What ends up happening is we get stuck in that place. And it affects all of our choices, and it affects all of our decisions, it affects all of our actions in the present moment, because we haven't made peace with that part of ourselves. And so when you would look at shame, so for instance, I was ashamed of not having been for having gotten all those people, having harmed those people.
In war.
When I was in the Air Force. I didn't go to war, but my decisions caused people harm. So what did that event teach me? It taught me about responsibility. It taught me about that I was responsible for my own actions. I wasn't responsible for other people's actions. By taking other people's responsibility and making it my own, then I took the burden away from. I put too much burden on myself. So we look at it, and that's just one example. Another example of what you're looking at with shame is, when you're looking to find what did it give you, you're looking to see how does that event, how did that experience, how can that change you for the better? How can that bring you to a better place? And you can embrace that child that was in that horrible place, and you can stop the story. You can look at it from a different, from being above it, and look at them and being able to see how innocent they were, and seeing the innocence of the people involved, especially you who've gone through the trauma. And we examine it from a place of being seeing that it's not who you have to be. It's not who you have to. Your whole life doesn't have to be influenced by this. So.
Wonderful, good. Yeah, that's really important to be able to write out and to understand and connect to what we're healing within ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Fabulous. You also have a free gift for people. Would you like to talk about that?
I do. I have a wonderful free gift. It's the first teleconference I had with when I started doing this work. And it's an hour teleconference audio. It goes through the whole program. It talks about how I came into this work and how this work has become my life's mission and purpose. And it breaks the modules down, all the different modules that I have in the program, and what each one emphasizes. And it's outstanding. It's really, I think people will love it. They'll get a lot out of it. They'll feel healed just by listening to it.
Wonderful. I don't know why the words Mission Impossible came into my head. You're doing the Mission Impossible with people.
Well, I understand it. I understand the depth of it. I understand how it affects families. I understand how, this is coming from a patient perspective.
Right.
This is not coming from someone who's been, who studied it for years and years and years.
And who hasn't lived it, correct?
Who hasn't lived it.
Right.
I've lived it.
Right.
I understand how when you don't heal the traumas within that one generation, how they get passed down to the next generation.
Yeah.
And how that unconsciously gets played out in the lives of other people. I understand the depth of the pain and what it's like, and when your soul flees your body, and it seems like it's hanging out over here, and what it takes to bring that back, to bring a whole person, a whole soul back into yourself, and to do that without medications, and to do that without drugs, and it's and also recognize that once we heal it within ourselves, we heal it for not only our families and 7 generations that preceded us, but we heal it for the 7 generations that come after us. And it's that kind of dedication to a higher cause that I believe in and want to dedicate my life to.
Wonderful. It's really important for anyone watching to discover their purpose for their life and what they've been through. I discovered that my purpose was to help others through the same pain, because I stopped looking at mine as the victim story, but as it's just the beauty that happened to me in order to help others. So mine I looked at as a gift. Was it a gift when I was going through it as a child? No. But is it a gift now? Yes, because I understand, like you said, from a personal standpoint. I didn't just read about this, I lived it. And so we can help others who are in the midst of the throes of it all. And it's really interesting how PTSD does come up and strike people when you least expect it. And I guess that's what the point of PTSD is. and when it is in full force is because we're not expecting it to happen, and the shock is what ignites it again. So,
well, it changes the way your brain functions. Your brain changes in that you're constantly. The fight or flight response is normal. Now, that was designed as we developed as a species in order to protect ourselves from danger. And then once that danger passed, we would return, our brain would return to normal, and we'd be able to live out our lives without any fear and terror in our lives. But what happens with someone with PTSD and who experiences trauma is that your brain changes the way it functions. So it actually is in a constant state of hypervigilance and hyper-alert and seeking danger, and it can never relax. And so it has to seek out those traumatic experiences in order to feel normal. And so it keeps recreating these things until we heal it within ourselves. We will keep reliving the same problems over and over again until we transform them.
Right.
And that's why I believe so wholeheartedly in the program that I've created, because I know it works. I did it. And,
they say that when you've finally have had enough is when you switch.
Yeah.
It's when you're just like, okay, I get it.
Yeah. It's true. When you finally say you've had enough, and you reach that point in your life where you can't go on anymore, and you've had it. And it's a life-changing moment.
And to be able to reach out to those who have the knowledge to help pass people along and through is beautiful, because we don't want to lose people through suicide or anything like that, because there's an awful lot of people out there waiting, willing, and wanting to assist anyone who has any type of PTSD or other forms of abuse. You may not even recognize that you have PTSD, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And that's perfect, because that's just one less added thing on your plate to mentally think about. But the truth is for anything that bothers you, seek help.
Yes, absolutely. It's going to benefit not only yourself, but all the people that in your lives, your family, your children, your friends. You're going to come into, once you heal everything within yourself and you tend your wounds, you're going to be a better woman. You're going to be a better man. You're going to be better to all the people that are around you. You're going to be able to fully experience your life the way it was intended to be experienced. But we get so caught up in these things and so filled with guilt and regret and anger and rage and all these other things that get connected to PTSD that we lose sight of that. And when you get that sense, I don't know how else to communicate it to those who are on this program or watching it who suffer from PTSD or trauma. Once you come out the other side, it is amazing. It is amazing. And this is how you come home.
Oh, I love
this
that.
Is how you come home. And I will be there and do everything I possibly can to help every single person, man, woman, child, to come home.
That's beautiful.
It's that personal, that deep for me.
Yeah. Thank you. This has been a wonderful interview, and I love the come home. Thank you. Thank you so much. And your credits will be on in the end, and thank you for your free gift and your tool on the experiential and the letter writing and just everything. It's lovely. And thank you for letting me interview you a second time.
Oh, thanks. I loved it, Mia.
See you all in the next segment. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. Bye.